Good evening and welcome to Works in Process. I'm Mary Cronson and delighted to welcome all of you. And this evening, as you know, we will have a discussion and see some excerpts of a new ballet by Justin Peck with music by Sufjan Stevens. And I want to thank them for being here and the wonderful dancers of the New York City Ballet. It should be a very exciting evening. And the musicians, thank you so much. Now, there is an announcement, as I always say, we are a museum. And Picasso Black and White is going to open October 5th. So we are going to have the reception on the two landings because they are loading in upstairs. So it'll be a little bit crowded, but the reception will still be the same. And welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. As Mary said, we're here to talk about Year of the Rabbit, which is a new ballet by New York City Ballet dancer and choreographer Justin Peck. As you can see from the promo video, it's premiering October 5th. I think it's always really special when a choreographer as young as Justin has his first commissioned work premiering in New York with New York City Ballet, but I think this project is even more special and unusual because Justin has reached out beyond the classical music world that we traditionally deal with in ballet and has chosen to work with composer Sufjan Stevens, who's very well known in the indie music scene, but his music really sort of blurs the lines of lots of different genres, and I think this is a really exciting thing for New York City Ballet. My name is Ellen Barr. I'm the director of media projects and a former soloist with New York City Ballet, and I'm very excited to have all the major collaborators of this ballet here on this panel. We have the composer, Sufjan Stevens. He's a singer-songwriter based in Brooklyn. His 2005 album, Illinois, was considered the best reviewed album of the year and was named one of the 100 best albums of the 2000s by Rolling Stone magazine. His 2010 album, The Age of Ads, reached number 7 on the US Billboard charts. Do you not want me to brag about you? In 2007, he was commissioned by BAM for their Next Wave Festival, and he created a large-scale ensemble composition inspired by the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, and it had a film accompaniment called the BQE. And Rolling Stone calls him one of the indie world's most eccentric and personal songwriters. The New York Times calls him a cult figure who happens to be a major artist. And the London Observer calls him one of the most compelling new voices in American music. Tonight, we will call him the composer of Year of the Rabbit.
Thank you. You didn't warn me about that.
We also have with us Michael Atkinson, who's a Juilliard undergrad and grad school alum. He's performed as a French horn soloist with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, New York Philharmonic, Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, Orchestra of St. Luke's, Orpheus, and the Knights. He's also worked extensively with Sufjan and other classical and popular artists as a conductor and as an arranger. And he's orchestrating the score of Year of the Rabbit, and he will also be conducting the performances at New York City Ballet. And of course, we have Justin Peck, who's been a member of New York City Ballet since 2007, and he debuted as a choreographer in 2009. Justin's created works for the New York Choreographic Institute and Columbia Ballet Collaborative, among other things. And his first ballet for New York City Ballet, Increases, premiered this summer in Saratoga Springs. Year of the Rabbit is Justin's first ballet for New York City Ballet to premiere in New York at Lincoln Center, and he's only 24 years old, which is pretty impressive. So I'm going to start with the music because anyone who knows New York City Ballet well knows music always comes first for us, and it usually is the starting point for any choreographer. So Sufjan, tell us about Year of the Rabbit. It's kind of had a long and interesting journey, so let us know how that started.
Well, I'm primarily a singer-songwriter, but around the year 2000, I was in writing school, so I had kind of given up writing narrative songs, but I still had this sort of like musical desire to create, so I started in my spare time messing around with computer software, electronics, beat making, rhythm making, drum machine kind of things, and that's basically where this music started out as electronic music, no singing or anything, which is kind of unusual for me, and I just used the Chinese zodiac as a template, and just decided to create these sort of electronic pieces that would somehow like evoke or simulate the kind of character of each of the animals. And that was just a hobby project, And as soon as I was done with the writing program, I got back into songwriting. And this album was almost completely forgotten and kind of looked over for many, many years.
So this was in 2001,
Yep.
And then in 2007, you actually rearranged the same sets of music for string quartet. How did that come about?
My friend Bryce Desner has a festival in Cincinnati called Music Now, and he commissioned Michael Atkinson to basically distill a few of the pieces for string quartet. It was his idea, it was Bryce's idea. And so kind of Mike went ahead and kind of interpreted, transcribed, and arranged all of this electronic music for string instruments, and they premiered in 2007. And then we liked it so much we decided to kind of continue. So we hired maybe 4 or 5 other arrangers to work with the other pieces, and then we had this whole basically an hour's worth of quartet music that was based on electronic music.
So this became Run, Rabbit, Run, which
Yeah.
you released in 2007. And Justin, when did you first hear that, and what inspired you to choreograph to it?
I probably heard it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I heard it on WNYC. The quartet was actually on the program, and they played a few of the movements, and so that was kind of the first time I heard this body of music, and I just thought to myself that this would be great for dance. It's very danceable, and I think Sufjan has a really innate ability to write danceable music, and so I kind of archived it at that point as a potential body of music that I wanted to work with later on, and then I kind of got a little bit antsy and then just delved right into it at the New York Choreographic Institute a couple years ago.
So how did that conversation first go when I assume you approached Sufjan to use his work? What did you think about someone choreographing to your work?
I thought it was great. I mean, I don't think I met you then.
This was before we had actually met. So I was originally working at the Institute, which is kind of like an incubated environment to work under. So it's kind of like a laboratory where choreographers can go to experiment with ideas and different pieces of music. And so I didn't actually approach Sufjan about using the music until I received the commission from New York City Ballet. And I think Peter Martins, our director, was very open about letting me do whatever I wanted to do with this commission. And I told him I really wanted to see out this vision with this particular body of music. And I asked Peter Martins if he would consider letting us orchestrate the music, because what I had envisioned for it was to work with a very large cast of dancers and work, obviously presented in a very large venue, our theater at Lincoln Center. And so then I approached Sufjan at that point and asked what he thought about orchestrating it. So.
Great. So Sufjan, how does the composing process generally work for you? How do you, I think you said you started with the Chinese zodiac as an inspiration. How do you know when pieces are done, and when you revisit them, do you revise, or how does that process work?
Well, I kind of work with my hands and my ears, and I'm a crafts person, so I do a lot of recording and overdubbing and then responding to what I hear, and then maybe later I'll bring in other musicians, but I do a lot of overdubbing myself and just a lot of playing different instruments myself. And so it's not abstract, it's not on the score at all. And I rarely work with charts unless I'm writing for an ensemble, which I've done here and there. So that's kind of how I work, and it's really just about instinct and just hearing and feeling. And you just know it, you just kind of feel if something's going in the right direction. With this music, it was so long ago, and I was working with a kind of a new medium, electronics. So to me, it was just about evoking and expressing a narrative without actually using language, which was kind of the first time I'd done that in a while. And I think it translates really well to dance because it's abstract, it's rhythmic, and it has a lot of idiosyncrasies and characters and weird sounds that can evoke meaning, but it doesn't have to, it's not explicit.
So I think it's a good time to probably see the first excerpt. Justin, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're about to see?
Sure. So this is going to be Joaquin De Luz dancing. It's from the movement Year of the Rabbit. And actually, in one of our meetings, I remember asking Sufjan about this particular piece of music, where the kind of inspiration comes for it. And he kind of described to me the way that rabbits outrun their prey, and they're not like the fastest creatures in the world, and what they do is they kind of dart back and forth, and they kind of juke out their prey, their predator in that way. And so I got to thinking about that, and it's actually very prevalent in the time signature of the music. So has this 5/6 5/6 constant repeat, and so I tried to kind of incorporate this idea into the choreography. So you can see Joaquin. Joaquin kind of has a perfect ability to kind of change direction, I think, so he's really right for this part.
So, Justin, a lot of what I love about your choreography is that you very much work in the traditional vocabulary, but you also use like unconventional shapes sometimes. And I'm wondering, is that suggested by the music, or were those ideas you wanted to use and then the music seemed to really fit the ideas you wanted to work with anyway?
Pretty much everything in this, at least in this work, is guided by the music. So, especially in this movement, I think again, the time signatures and the rhythms really kind of help to dictate the rhythms of the dancing themselves. So it switches between this 11 counts and then to 4/4, and then there's several like quick fives in there, and so it's challenging, but it's fulfilling to work on too.
And so obviously we're seeing this with the string quartet, but it's going to be a full orchestra at New York City Ballet. So Michael, can you talk about the process of taking those string quartets and orchestrating them? What is the first thing you do, and is it sort of, are you facing a wealth of choices of how to bring this to a full orchestra, or is it more, is it more difficult to find the right path?
It's a good question. The original album, Enjoy Your Rabbit, is very kind of grand in scope. There's a lot of different layers. And the challenge that I had doing the very first arrangement was, how am I going to take the four most important voices of this music and make it work as a string quartet? It's funny, actually, the first time I listened to Enjoy Your Rabbit and started the work on this process, I thought, wow, I really want to do this for a string orchestra. But it's nice that I get a chance to do it now. But what I decided to do this time is I wanted to go back to the original and see if I could find some of the voices that I was not able to put into the string quartet version and see if it would work with the larger ensemble. But also I didn't want to take too much away from what Justin had been used to hearing all this time. And if you'd like, I have some excerpts queued up to show an example of such a thing. So just, we have a couple snippets here. We're going to play it over the PA here. If we can start with the first excerpt is from A Year of the Ox, which we're going to hear that in a few moments, but this is later on in the piece. Can you play Ox 1, please? Okay, so you can hear there's a lot going on there, right? So a lot of, going back to the original string quartet version of this, what I tried to do is find a usable balance between the melodic material and sort of the crazy electronic sounds, because they all relate to each other in an integral way. And through the use of extended techniques on string instruments, I found this to be very possible, and I was inspired to do it taking a look at the works of many modern composers, including Ligeti, Bartók, and Stravinsky even. And so I'll just, instead of talking, I'll just, let's hear Bore number 2. This is a, before you start, this is a, we had 3 workshops with some friends of mine just to kind of hear the string version before we got to the first rehearsal with the City Ballet Orchestra, and this is a recording from the 3rd workshop we did. So, Bore number 2, please. I'm sorry, Ox number 2. So you can hear in sort of the middle section of that excerpt, the string players use something that we call a chop technique, where they mute the strings and sort of beat their instruments in a rhythmical way, and it mimics pretty effectively, I believe, the sort of the drum machine sounds from the original. And you can hear also just, I was able to expand a lot of different melodic lines happening at once. So that's one kind of obvious example of how to do that. Do you want to hear another quick one?
Yes.
Okay, so one other example. Can we just start with bore 1, please? Okay, so again, lots happening in that one. But interesting enough, this was the last of the original set that we did back in 2007. The first 3 were Rabbit, Lord, and Ox. This one sort of completed the original set of 4. In this version of Bore, I just remember when I wrote it and I thought, wow, this sounds just so much like Bartok to me. So I decided to write it using those kind of style cues. And I tried to incorporate in this, again, we're going to hear this next clip is going to be from that read-through with friends of mine. And we're going to hear how many of those sort of important voices I could cram into a large string orchestra. So Bore number 2, please. So you can see, and it's interesting because this version, when we translated the pitches and rhythms to string instruments, when the players went on to play them on their own, the tempo is faster than the original, and it's just interesting how this music, whatever arrangement it exists in, it takes on its own meaning and character within the instruments that's being played, and that happens throughout all of these, I believe.
Yeah.
So when you were going from the electronic version to the original string quartets, you didn't have to think about dancers because that wasn't part of the equation yet. But going from these string quartets to the full orchestral score, you know it's being used for ballet. So how does that change the choices you make?
Oh, yeah. Well, I spent a lot of time asking Justin questions about early on what he was hearing and what things in the music that were coming out to him, just in terms of making sure that for example, there's a moment in Ox where the second violins have these high notes that happen on beat 2 and 4, and I just wanted to make sure that those were marked at a dynamic so that he and the dancers could hear that and react, because what I hear is one thing, but what he's going to hear and want to dance to is another. So I just want to make sure that we were on the same page about that, and just making sure that the voices that are, but also actually as regards to the piano reduction, that the stuff that they're hearing in the piano reduction is coming out in a similar way, just so that we're all hearing the same thing at the same time.
I think what's great is about this project is that it's being scored for a string orchestra specifically with this ballet in mind. So I actually got a chance to listen to all the music as a whole and then edit it down to exactly 7 movements and kind of create this progression throughout the piece. And I got to choose that, which is really great. And then I brought a couple thoughts to Sufjan and to Mike in terms of what I wanted for transitions or specific accents and music, and I was able to work with them in a very hands-on fashion in order to kind of like tailor make this music specific for a ballet, which is really great. So, and also just a thought on how dancers count music versus musicians. It's actually very different, and I find that you almost have to like when I'm choreographing a new piece with a new piece of music, I have to sort of read through the score and then almost translate the music for how the dancers would count it or how the dancers would hear it. So it's 2 different sort of languages going on, I think.
Yeah, and Mike, earlier I remember you told me that you had even considered the layout of New York City Ballet's orchestra and the acoustics of the pit and what the dancers were much more likely to be able to hear from where they are, which I thought was also really amazing and not something I think that people are capable of thinking of in advance, usually when you're not dealing with a commissioned score like this. Mm-hmm. So, Sufjan, how does the collaboration with you and Michael work?
Well, we've been working on this for since 2007. So, and we've been friends and musical collaborators for a long time. So we have really good kind of like a dynamic. And I think for a lot of this, I decided to be much more hands off than I would be normally, because I was interested in his translation of things, and I really trusted him. And then he would bring the scores to me, and then we would have readings, and then I would respond to the readings, and then make suggestions, and we would cut bars, and and we would a lot of these arrangements are compressions. The original album is like 80 minutes or something. It's really long, and the quartets are much more reduced. I think they're much tighter, more dynamic, and have a lot more I think impact. And I think it's because we just kept working over them and workshopping them, like with many different musicians. It was a great, not a lot of new music. You don't have the privilege to workshop for so long, but we've spent years and years on this. So
that's cool.
I think there's been a lot of versions of the music, and there's also been a lot of versions of the choreography too. I mean, I've gone through kind of 2 separate versions of, I started working with Ox, Tiger, and Boar at the Institute, and I went through sort of like 2 sessions where it changed and evolved, and I edited the work and everything, and so now it's kind of choreographically it's in its 3rd sort of version, and then we're adding 4 more movements.
Yeah,
so
it's extremely communal and cooperative.
Yeah. We did throw away quite a bit on early versions of the orchestration. I wrote a whole different ending to Ox that I thought would be better, and it was totally bad. We actually thought of having 2 very small percussion parts to try and capture some of the original, but then we decided against that. But I think a measure of a good artist is how much you throw away, is what I've heard once in a while. We threw away quite a bit on this one, so.
So there's actually a lot of the ballet that we're not seeing here today because the corps is not here. And Justin, can you talk a little bit about how you are using the corps, especially in the excerpt that we're about to see next, which I think is Rooster?
Mm-hmm. Well, with this project, I really wanted to create kind of like an equality between the principal dancers and the corps de ballet as a whole. And so usually when you see ballets, it's more about the corps kind of supporting the movement of the principals, and you don't see it too often. I mean, you see it in ballets like, I think, Jerome Robbins' Glass Pieces, where the corps really gets a chance to shine, and so I really wanted to make this sort of democratic environment on stage and have this back and forth between the principal dancers and the corps de ballet, but not in a destructive way, and more so of a constructive way. And it's, when I decided to do the Guggenheim thing here, I was very skeptical to show the work because it's almost like trying to bake a cake with half the ingredients on the list. It's like it's not gonna taste as good as having all the ingredients involved, and so just keep that in mind. There's something lacking that.
Well, it's
presenting
less
it
that
here.
something's lacking and more like if you come to the premiere, you're going to get this whole
Exactly.
other part of the
yeah,
cake.
something to look forward to.
But I've seen this in rehearsal, so I know that Justin uses the core so inventively and really complex. Well, you kind of make really simple patterns in a complex way, or maybe vice versa. How do you plan that when you don't have bodies in the room?
There's a lot of kind of just like sketching that goes on, or organization, with just paper and pencil, really primitive, but.
Can we actually see that slide? I think we have a slide of Justin's primitive drawings.
But it's hard to envision movement with a very large corps de ballet just mentally. So sometimes it helps to write things down or to draw things. And so this slide you're about to see is I really wanted to use the wing space of the stage. You don't see a lot of movement in this kind of like transitional space on the stage. You see it a little bit in a ballet like Symphony in Three Movements, where the corps de ballet is kind of like expanded outward and they're just standing kind of midway in the wing. And so I wanted to see what sort of movement I could incorporate into this space to kind of expand the stage. And so this is kind of like a layered pattern that's happening with the corps de ballet, and it's let's see, it's 4/4, so but dancers would count it in eighths, and so it's kind of hard to explain, but basically it's it's
It looks like Twister.
yeah, something. It's color coded, yeah. So, I mean, it's in canon, so the movement of the dancers is kind of progressing out from the first swing and then moving down upstage throughout the piece. And I mean, it'll make more sense when you actually see the ballet. Trust me. But anyway, so what we're going to see, this excerpt is from "You're the Rooster," and its dancers are Teresa Reichlen and Robert Fairchild. So. So structurally with the choreography, it follows like an ABC sort of format. So it starts with Robbie dancing and then Tess dancing and then them dancing together. And so it kind of repeats in that sequence.
So Justin, how did you cast this ballet?
It was actually really great because Peter gave me complete freedom to cast it however I wanted. So I actually thought for very long about who I wanted to incorporate into this project, and I really wanted to create a strong chemistry amongst the dancers and create this sort of like communal feel to the ballet. And so I know all these dancers so well because I've been dancing in this company for six years now, I believe. And some of them I've grown up with. Like Robbie and I were roommates while we were at SAB when we were like 16. So I've gotten to know their dancing really well, and I know their personalities. And so I was able to kind of very specifically pick the cast, like handpick the cast, and I think it's made for a really interesting and productive dynamic in the studio and also on the stage. So,
is it difficult, since they are your peers and your close friends, to sort of step into that new role in the studio?
No, it's okay. I think everyone's fairly professional, and I think they're, I know where they're coming from since I'm a dancer myself, and it's just it's a very positive working environment, actually.
So do you feel like you get ideas from them or from how they?
Oh yeah, I mean when I've known about this commission now for a very long time, actually, probably almost 2 years, and so I've had a lot of time to think about this and listen to the music. I've probably listened to this music hundreds and hundreds of times, and when I start to envision choreography, I have definite dancers in mind for each part. So Joaquin, I've been thinking about movement for him for a very long time, and same goes for Tess and Robbie and the others to come.
So actually in the next excerpt that we're going to see, this is the only piece that we're going to see that's being danced by Tyler that was choreographed on Ashley Bowder. So when you do see that movement on a different dancer, does it change how you saw it, or do you get new ideas from that?
I think that it's really interesting to watch, actually. The interpretations are very different. I think they're both very good. It's kind of it's crazy because Tyler has just learned this part maybe a few days ago, and she has this crazy ability to just replicate movement and pick up choreography so quickly. But I think we're going to work on this a little bit now that we have the time here in the studio.
Yeah, Justin's actually going to use this time to rehearse more with her. So she's actually going to perform it once, and then he'll go work with her, and she'll do it again, which I think will be really interesting for you guys to see.
And the movement is Year of the Ox, so it's the opening movement. Also incorporates a large corps de ballet, but we'll see Tyler. Good. It's good. It's like 90 to 95% there. Just like the little details are not quite. I think that this is very good, the start. And then I think if you think about the body moving in two separate parts, like the lower half and then the upper half, then maybe when we go here, the lower half initiates this movement with the double round de jambe, and then the upper half sort of follows through here. There, does that make sense? That's it, yeah. And you can look almost has this sort of torque in the body. So the rond de jambe is open this way, and the upper body almost starts facing this way, and then it opens up. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, good. And then this should be like scissors. This the cabriole, 1 and a 2 for that. Yeah, that's good. And then I think if you think about sort of drawing an S shape on the floor. So here we step, and then it curves, and then it curves again with the arms, yeah. That's right, yeah. That's nice. And then this, I think this can be the one moment where it's really soft, and then you can phrase if you want, I think, for here. So this almost happens at the very last minute, the envelope through, and then if you connect this into the next side and put the foot right down right away. Yeah, that's nice. And then the other thing I would say is for the turns, keep the left arm and the left leg connected. So, and it's in 2 parts, so we see down here, and then everything pulls out for the turn. That's it, yeah, so you see the difference. That's right, though. Good, yeah. Yeah, the rest was really nice. The only other thing I would say is, you know when we go to passe, high passe here? Actually, no. Actually, when we do this, the running part, and we close into 5th, I think the right arm, I'm missing the right arm sort of coming across the forehead, almost like wiping the sweat off when you close into 5th there. That's it, yeah. That's good, that's nice. Okay, let's see it one more time with all that. Yeah, it's like, that's it. We'll see what happens. That was great, yeah. See, I think little kind of accents and rhythm like that kind of give the dancer the ability to stretch out certain parts of the music or condense certain parts of the music, and it's kind of like a visualization of that, so.
Feel like the solo is like a really good example of what I was talking about before, like the unconventional like shapes and movements that you're using. Did that come from any sort of research that you did, you know, on top of just what you hear from the music?
You mean in terms of like the Chinese zodiac and all that?
Yeah.
I didn't, I started researching the zodiac, and it's such a deep rabbit hole to go down. There's like so much written on that I almost like cut myself off once I started that. There is one thing that really stuck out to me about the Chinese zodiac, and that's how the different zodiac signs relate to one another. And so, one sign can have a certain relationship with another sign, and then, it could be sort of rivalry with one sign and friendship with another sign, and these sort of little relationships amongst the zodiac signs. And so I kind of wanted to incorporate that notion into the choreography a little bit. And so what I did was I took these very short fragments of movement and sort of placed them in various zodiac signs that corresponded to one another. And it's very subtle, and I don't think it's something that people can usually pick up on right away, but I think hopefully with multiple viewings of the ballet, it's something that people will start to notice, at least.
So Sufjan, how does it feel to watch that movement put to your music? Does it make you hear things that you didn't hear when you were creating it, or what's your reaction to it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more like subdivision and fluidity, in the movement of the body compared to the original music, especially the electronic music, which is so gridded and kind of really antagonistic. It's very purposefully very aggressive and very like rigid, but it has a lot of like character and nuance and even comedy. And then to see that then translated for human beings playing string instruments, it brings it closer to the earth, and then seeing it evolve as movement in the human body, I think it's pretty sublime, because it creates a whole nother like I guess a whole other, it creates its own language, its own musical language that's inherent within us, as physical beings. So I know it's pretty strange, but it's
No, that actually makes a lot of sense. What I wanted to ask you was, what was your idea of ballet before this? I mean, did you have a sort of strong idea of ballet? Had you seen it before this project?
Not really. I think I had maybe gone to the State Theater once to see Apollo. A friend dragged me, and I didn't like it actually, because it felt very very formal and conservative and restrictive, and like it felt just very very controlled. And then when Justin contacted me, he said, "You have to have an education." So, and I'm very grateful for that, because he invited me to see all the Balanchine, the modern Balanchine pieces, ballets, and when I saw Agon, it kind of blew my mind, and I started to really understand the possibilities, and there was this like kind of exciting like catharsis, personal catharsis, revelation that you probably had when you were like 10, but but so I'm a late bloomer to ballet, but I've fallen in love with it. So.
What about you, Michael?
I went to Juilliard, and the Juilliard dormitory shares space with the School of American Ballet, so I was in proximity with many dancers, but and played for a lot of dance, but never actually saw very much of it myself. Although also Justin sought to educate me, and it was great to come and hear a few performances by the wonderful orchestra. I got to see the Four Temperaments, and also Apollo, and Apollo really blew my mind, and but for me, the thing that has blown my mind even more is 2 weeks ago, I spent 7 days sort of living with the company and going to all the piano rehearsals, so I could really get to know their tempos, but just to see how fast they work, and they communicate in their own language of movement and everything, and it's a level of discipline that it's incredible to me, and it's really an incredible appreciation.
Great. I want to sort of ask each one of you this question. What do you think has been you've talked about, a lot of the positive things of the collaboration, but what has been the greatest challenge in doing this? I guess we can just go down the line, start with Justin.
Greatest challenge of doing this. It's actually been a really sort of, it's hard to come up with something. It's been a really fluid process. I think we've been working so well with one another, and New York City Ballet as an institution has been so open with the project and the collaboration and everything, and so, I don't know, it's hard to come up with something.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
I would agree very much with what Justin said. We've had nothing but support for this project from the City Ballet and everybody who's been involved. The thing that I personally think about, since I did the orchestration and the parts, and also I'm conducting the orchestra, is I'm used to having usually a little more time to work on things. And in any institution nowadays, your time is very valuable. So for me, I spend many hours thinking about how I'm going to spend. Next Friday is the first read through with the full string section. So I have list of things, how I want to go through things, and of course that list could all be thrown away in a matter of 30 seconds when I hear them play. So that's just sort of my own internal drama with it. But but that's a very small part of what has otherwise been a wonderful process.
Yeah, it hasn't really been that challenging, I think, because it's so, even the amount of work involved, and time and energy in the resources, all of that, it's been very, very satisfying, in spite of the constant effort. But for me, I think it's just about consciousness, like having to kind of shift my way of seeing and viewing and thinking, because I'm just a folk singer, and I'm pretty autonomous, and I work alone, and then having to somehow then open up and accommodate multiple parties and variables and collaborators and full string orchestra and 18 dancers, and just let it kind of let it go. It hasn't really been a challenge, but it's just like it's just a new way of.
It's been different.
It's been a kind of a new way of thinking, and I kind of love it. So.
Yeah.
One big difference that I think Sufjan and I realized between like the folk music scene and the ballet scene is that in ballet you don't want to show any effort, even though it's very hard, and in
folk music it's relatively easy, but you have to look like you're trying really hard.
That's true. That's a big difference. You're all quite young, and this is sort of this is a big stage and a big event. And do you feel like being young has been an obstacle in any way, or do you feel like it's been an advantage?
I'm embracing my naivety.
Hide behind that. But I know, Justin, that you've been very concerned about, wanting to reach out to younger audiences. I mean, has that gone into any of the choices that you're making?
It's sort of a byproduct that Sufjan has a fan base. I would never choose to work with a composer based on that. I think the first priority is the fact that Sufjan's music is very inspiring to me as an individual and as a choreographer, and it's just kind of like an added bonus that he has some sort of following of his music. So that's all.
So, what's next for all of you? Future projects, or would you want to work in ballet again?
Oh yeah, definitely. I never thought that my music would be conducive to dance or accommodate dance, but now that I see it, it feels like it's something that I would like to, work on in the future. That'd be fun. But I don't know what's next otherwise. I just live one day at a time right now.
I mean, I'm still a dancer in New York City Ballet, so we still performing, like, I think the first Tuesday after this goes, I'm dancing something else, so it's kind of like attempting to balance the two focuses right now for me.
Cool. Well, I think we should go ahead and look at our last excerpt. It's going to be the last thing you see tonight. And I just want to stress again that you really should come see this ballet when it premieres at Lincoln Center, just because you're really just seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's so much to it and so much to be excited about. So, and I also just want to thank the Guggenheim for having us, and thank Mary Sharp-Cronson and our wonderful musicians and our wonderful dancers, and thank you for supporting this series, because it does give a lot of amazing opportunities to young artists. So, see you at the reception.
didn't get a chance to do Lord, but I'm gonna try and squeeze Lord in tomorrow. They were kind of running ahead of that.
Yeah, we're ahead.
Thanks. See you tomorrow.
That's it. Yeah, you should pare it down to the quartet version for the concert.
Yeah, it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great with strings, but
It's just
I like the intimacy of it.
Well, the counting's like